As New York City's mayoral election nears, the race has taken a deeply personal turn. Progressive candidate Zohran Mamdani now leads the polls against former Governor Andrew Cuomo. But the campaign has ignited fierce national debate after U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance mocked Mamdani's comments regarding Islamophobia after the 9/11, a comment many viewed as offensive. And at the same time, the Republican lawmakers are calling for investigations into Mamdani's citizenship. What began as a city election has become a test of how far America has come in confronting prejudice, inclusion, and identity politics. Will Mamdani's message of equality and social reform prevail despite the attacks? And could this race reshape the boundaries of who gets to belong in the American public life? Welcome to In Depth. According to The Guardian, more than 30,000 people filled Forest Hill Stadium in Queens for Zohran Mamdani's New York City is not for sale rally, held just over a week before the New York City mayoral election. The event, headlined by Mamdani alongside Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, drew a diverse and energized crowd, especially young voters, who described the night as a rare moment of unity and hope for real change. Sanders called the race a fight between ordinary people and billionaires, urging support for Mamdani as a stand against Trump's influence. Mamdani's message focused on diversity as New York's greatest strength, bringing together a rabbi, reverend, and imam on stage in a show of inclusion. The rally ended with thousands lighting their phone flashlights as Mamdani declared, "Our work has only just begun. On November the 4th, we set ourselves free." And according to the New York Times, Vice President J.D. Vance drew widespread criticism after mocking Zohran Mamdani, the Democratic frontrunner in New York City's mayoral race, for recounting his aunt's fear of Islamophobic abuse after the 9/11 attacks. And Vance posted on social media, according to Zohran, the real victim of 9/11 was his auntie, who got some, allegedly, bad looks, sparking outrage from the Muslim Americans and progressives. Mamdani, who is seeking to become the city's first Muslim mayor, accused Vance and Republicans of spreading cheap jokes about Islamophobia to divide voters and avoid addressing discrimination. The episode followed similar attacks from Donald Trump, who has just called Mamdani a communist, and from other Republicans who labeled him a jihadist. Mamdani defended his faith and identity, saying Muslims have long faced bigotry in the shadows and declaring, "I will no longer look for myself in the shadows, I will find myself in the light."
Zohran Mamdani, who is running to become the city's first Muslim mayor, has surged ahead in New York's mayoral contest, topping polls against Andrew Cuomo and other challengers. His proposals, including free city buses, rent freezes, city-run groceries, are anchored in progressive rhetoric and heavily taxed wealthy residents. Yet his rise draws ferocious opposition. Some Republicans lawmakers are demanding investigations into his citizenship. Rivals like Cuomo now contested him as an independent, further fracturing the Democratic base. Polls suggest a voter exodus. Over a quarter of New Yorkers surveyed say they'd relocate if Mamdani wins. Analysts view the race as a turning point within the Democratic Party, a clash between the old center establishment and the rising progressive movement. But the campaign has also exposed deeper divisions in American society. Mamdani, who is Muslim and of Ugandan Indian descent, has faced Islamophobic attacks and questions about his path to U.S. citizenship. Tensions escalated further after his public fallout with U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, who criticized Mamdani comments about his feeling unsafe after the 9/11 2001 attacks. The exchange has amplified national attention on the race, turning a local election into a broader debate about identity, inclusion, and the boundaries of dissent in American democracy. If Mamdani wins, his victory could redefine not only New York's leadership, but also the trajectory of progressive politics across the United States.
And for more analysis, we are joined from Washington by Ms. Ginger Chapman, the lawyer and political analyst, and Mr. Dan Rene, the political researcher. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining me here today. I will start with Mr. Rene. Sir, recent polls show Zohran Mamdani maintaining a double-digit lead over Andrew Cuomo. How much of this reflects a genuine ideological shift among New York voters towards the progressive left, do you think?
Well, again, and thank you so much. And, you know, it's not just the polls. I mean, there's just such excitement around Mamdani that I don't see another pathway for any other candidate to be victorious in this. And what we're seeing in this mayoral race, it's not just another election. It really is a turning point for New York. Mamdani is running not just as a reformer, he's running as a self-described Democrat socialist, which many on the right are calling communist. His agenda reads like a far left Fantasyland wish list, where we're talking about these government-run grocery stores, free public transit, universal child care, massive new spending, which is going to result in significantly higher taxes on the city's job creators. But let's be honest with ourselves here. New York's budget isn't built for fantasy economics. And what we have here is a lot of great slogans and chants and rallies that we can have. But the messages that are being sent to businesses and taxpayers is very clear. Pack up, because success is going to be punished. And New York, the math is just not going to add up. So his victory might be a victory for the ideological side of things, but it's not going to be a victory for the practical enforcement of his ideas.
Okay, Ms. Chapman, as a lawyer, do you think Republicans are now calling for an investigation into Zohran Mamdani's citizenship? From a legal point of view, can a naturalized American's right to run for office really be questioned years later? What protections does the law give in such cases? Can you actually question someone's citizenship in the American law?
Yes. Well, first, Salma, thank you for having us today, and greetings to your viewers and to your other guests. And the State Department investigating Mamdani's citizenship process, this is, to use the words of President Donald Trump, this is a witch hunt. We have to give full faith and credit to the immigration process. So the Department of Justice saying they're going to investigate him is really to cast aspersions on his candidacy. Yeah. And I agree with your other guest. This is a sign of just how desperate both the Republicans and the Democrats are at the prospect of a Mamdani mayorship in New York City. We know that the Republicans have been trying to get Curtis Sliwa to drop out of the race. He is polling the lowest, between 16 and 19%. He says he will not drop out. He wants to represent the everyday New Yorkers. At the same time, Andrew Cuomo changed from Democrat to independent, and this is because he too saw that Mamdani is getting the support of New Yorkers, and he is leading in the polls. We saw Eric Adams drop out, and in fact, after the rally on Friday night, Andrew Cuomo ran to Eric Adams' side, got a last-minute endorsement, and they went to a Knicks game to prove and to show their New York bona fides. But the people of New York are very angry. The people of New York have been living under a chaotic administration for some time. Andrew Cuomo, as governor during the COVID pandemic, left New York in a state of disarray. And even now, we did see Mayor Eric Adams was attaining some measure of success until he started to go against the Biden administration on immigration, at which point the Biden administration, everyone remembers, Eric Adams was on a plane heading to D.C. to talk to Biden, and Biden announced he was under investigation, and Adams turned around. So there's tension between New York City and D.C., regardless of which party you're looking at. And also, if Mamdani wins, he will have an uphill struggle to accomplish his goals because of the political chaos that is New York City.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Rene, as a political researcher, I just asked Ms. Ginger as a legal lawyer, I just asked her this question. So I'd like to ask you from a political point of view. Now, Republican lawmakers are now urging the Justice Department to investigate Mamdani's citizenship and accusing him of misrepresentation. How much of this is politically motivated moves rather than legitimate concern?
I think it's probably all. I think it's probably all politically motivated. The fact is that this race is just shaped up to be a disaster from the very start. The candidates that are running are just not popular in New York. And it is opened the door for someone like Mamdani to rise.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. So both candidates you're saying are not popular, or?
Oh no, Mamdani is very popular with the far left, and but Cuomo is certainly someone that is not popular, and Sliwa has had his own issues as well, trying to catch on.
Yes.
And asking a Republican to support Cuomo is just it's just a non-starter. I mean, these alliances are ones that are going to be very hard to form here in the last minute of a political campaign. Mm-hmm. And so what we're seeing here, these other calls when it comes to citizenship tests and these other things, I mean, it is to, it's not going to be effective, but I think that perhaps it may help in terms of illustrating the issues that might be coming here. We don't need ideology in New York. We need accountability. We need enforcement. Yep. And New York runs on confidence. And so when you have these threatening things that are coming in, I think that you're going to see a lot of people, putting whatever they can to try to stop this from happening. But I mean, again, at this point, I see it as a fait accompli. Mamdani is going to be the next mayor of New York. And then what we're going to see is the repercussions from that. Okay. His pathway has been very seductive to get there, but his governing will not be sustainable once he gets there.
Ms. Chapman, J.D. Vance's public mockery of Mamdani's 9/11 comments, of course, drew criticism for inflaming Islamophobic sentiment. How do you read this?
Yes, well, I read this as both Republicans and Democrats and conservative Democrats, pardon the oxymoron, are pulling out all their big guns against Mamdani. The investigation into his citizenship. Once again, the Immigration Department should have done their job with his citizenship, which is why this investigation into his citizenship is a witch hunt. Mm-hmm. And that appears to be making him only more popular. Yeah. And even if Sliwa drops out of the race now and endorses Cuomo, some Republicans would vote for Cuomo in order to not have Mamdani. However, many Republicans will not. They would just sit at home if they could not vote for Sliwa. And this is because New York City has the notorious lowest turnout amongst many cities. New York City turnout is very low, usually 30–40% of the voters turn out.
What do you think, what's the reason behind that low voting percentage?
It could be just that New Yorkers are very busy, or they're disengaged, or they're just not very confident in the political process. But New York City has 7 million people, and once again, notoriously low voter turnout. Perhaps many people feel that their vote will not make a difference. One thing that is significant, this weekend, 130,000 people did turn out for early voting. This time in the last mayoral candidate race, only 30,000 people had turned out for early voting. So Mamdani
there's a huge difference.
Generating a great deal of interest. These people are not turning out for Sliwa. They're not turning out for Cuomo. I do agree with your other guest, Mamdani. It does look like he is going to be the mayor, but once again, he will be governing over chaos. He will have a difficult time pushing through his policies. So this will be very interesting once he is elected.
Mr. Rene, now Mamdani's ambitious reforms like free buses, rent freezes, and city-run groceries has drawn both praise and skepticism. Do you think these are realistic policy goals or just purely symbolic politics, in your opinion?
It is idealism without realism. Elections should be about competence, not ideology. His campaign is essentially a protest movement, not the discipline of an administration. You can't tweet your way to a balanced budget. You can't chant your way to clean streets and low crime. Running a city of 8 million people requires pragmatic leadership. And so it's going to require a lot more than just these ideas and trying to raise taxes and making this class welfare of the billionaires versus the regular folks.
The ordinary people.
It's going to be a very difficult way to implement these things, especially when you start to see the businesses and the people who have the funds that are going to realize that this is not for them and they're going to leave. I mean, the winner is not necessarily going to be Mamdani on election day. It's going to be Ron DeSantis from Florida, because you're going to see a lot of places moving out of New York to go to places where you're going to have less of a tax burden.
Ms. Chapman, Mamdani in an interview had said that he would take Trump's administration to court once he becomes the mayor. How feasible is this? Do you think that's possible?
If and when Mamdani is elected, he is going to have a great deal of difficulty governing. And some of his ideas, such as free bus rides, we know from experience, will wind up with homeless people living on public transportation. So many of his ideas have been tried before. They have failed, but they sound great campaigning. As far as suing the Trump administration, this is a dead end. It will only cost them more money. This is because we've seen this before. We've seen the New York Attorney General, Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, their AG. So once again, Mamdani is recycling old but popular but failed ideas. Suing the Trump administration will not work. It will be a distraction. If he is to succeed, he will have to become pragmatic. It remains to be seen whether he can run on, as your other guest said, a protest vote with very pie in the sky ideas such as free transportation for all, cheap rent. These are ideas that have been tried over and over in New York. They will not succeed. But if he is able to become a pragmatist, then he does have a chance. It's very unlikely given the overall tone in New York City. Right now, New York City is a very chaotic, ungoverned place. It remains to be seen if anyone could make a difference at this point. Unless we get a very stern Republican in, there's no chance of that with the voter base in New York. So they will continue to see chaos regardless of who is elected. But when it is Mamdani, if he does try to sue the Trump administration, that will be just another waste of money and another dead end. To make any progress, he will have to discard his campaign promises and get down to the nuts and bolts of actual governing, balancing the books, accountability. And we do not see that happening. And it remains to be seen. Will the people of New York, will the businesses leave for better tax states, or will New York just continue to limp along as it is, short of any major revolution there.
But I think, Ms. Chapman, that it's not just only about Trump, but Mamdani was also sharply criticized by Vance, especially after his Islamophobia comments. How do you read this fallout to the Trump administration altogether?
This is a very interesting time in American politics as Americans come to term with our increasing Muslim and Arab population. This is highlighted because of Trump's policies and his endeavors for peace in the Middle East right now. And so J.D. Vance and the whole Islamophobia comments, this is very interesting the way it's playing out. Mamdani got a lot of criticism for appearing in a photograph with one of the imams who may have been involved with the 9/11 bombings. Oh. However, many Americans also accuse the CIA of our 9/11 bombings. Many Americans now believe that this was a CIA plot gone wrong. So the Zionism in this country is undergoing a dramatic sea change. In fact, one of the things you could characterize America right now as we are going through a political upheaval. We may be close to a civil war before the next presidential elections. However, going into the 2026 midterm elections, many of these issues will come to a head. So we can view Mamdani and J.D. Vance, Islamophobia, Zionism, peace in the Middle East against this larger backdrop of
a lot
upheaval.
Has been happening.
Yes, and New York is just one more symptom in this global upheaval that we are experiencing.
Yeah. Mr. Rene, Andrew Cuomo's independent bid has split the Democratic electorate. Could this fragmentation cost Democrats future control in state and national races, do you think?
Well, again, Cuomo and his family, for that matter, have been a major force in Democratic politics for decades. And it goes back to his father's leadership as well. And again, Mario Cuomo and Andrew Cuomo are certainly very different in terms of their popularity and the way that they've led. And what we're seeing now is that Andrew Cuomo is trying to protect what's left of the Democrat Party in New York from falling into this Democrat socialism that is really starting to overtake the moderate and more conservative Democrats, in New York and elsewhere. And we're seeing that nationally as well. We're seeing a real bid by the more progressive wing of the Democrat Party to try to influence more mainstream. And I think that this is one place in New York where this progressive idea, this democratic socialism is, the calling for the rent control, the calling for the free buses, these social experiments that will inevitably paralyze the city are gaining in popularity. And the traditional Democrats are certainly losing that battle along with conservatives. So again, I think that New York is really a testing ground for this radically progressive idea. Yep. And it's probably going to take the implementation of some of these things to realize that, you know what, this isn't going to work, and socialism is great until you run out of other people's money.
Ms. Chapman, Mamdani has described these criticisms as, quote unquote, part of a long history of Islamophobic fear-mongering. From your perspective, how effective is this framing in rallying support or maybe deflecting criticism? What do you think?
Well, cries of Islamophobia or Islamic radicalism, those have been thrown about in American politics since 9/11, and they have had a great deal of effect up until now. And Mamdani's popularity, his leading in the polls, is a leading indicator that the American people are no longer falling for cries of radical Islam, On the other side, Islamophobia does not seem to be as great a slur as it used to be. And this is an acknowledgement that the demographics and the politics of America have changed greatly over the past 25 years. And Democrats and Republicans are catching up to this. And we see that both the Democrat and the Republican Party are running scared from Mamdani and his popularity. Once again, he will have trouble governing, but his candidacy has brought out all of the political accusations, the political slurs, and has forced America to really confront, are we Islamophobic? Are we Zionist? What is happening in America? And New York City is the forefront of this. It's a modern city. It's our most international city with people from all over the world.
Like
so once
pot,
again, New York City is a leading indicator, and many of the old demographic paradigms from the last 25 years no longer hold, and this election will be a great example of that.
Mr. Rene, I asked this question to Ms. Chapman, and there was a public clash between Mamdani and Vice President J.D. Vance. And after Vance mocked Mamdani's story about his aunt facing Islamophobia after the 9/11, how has that exchange reshaped the race, in your opinion, now, please?
You know, I think that there's people are just pretty much reaching for anything that they can, and again, I don't think that it's going to necessarily reshape the race. You know, Mamdani has built his support, and in terms of the trust or mistrust, I don't think that the ideology of religion is really going to be anything that is going to change people's minds, especially now. I mean, there's been a lot of time that's passed. I mean, tolerance and acceptance of other people's ideas has increased. But what I think is probably better, instead of attacking religion or looking at citizenship and what have you, let's take a look at the fact is that you cannot spend your way into equality. And that's exactly what Mamdani is proposing here. And so, we need to really shine a light on what his leadership is really going to mean before it's too late. And at this point, I think it is too late. I think that New Yorkers will have to start to realize what exactly they're voting for. And once they experience it, there'll be quite a revolt at that point, because success is not something to be redistributed. Success is something that should be celebrated. That's not the New York way. And Mamdani is going to realize that very quickly, regardless of one's religion and one's ideals. I mean, this Democrat socialism is simply not going to work, and it's going to fail. It's going to paralyze the city, and they're going to need to have something that can come in terms of real leadership very soon after he prevails and these ideas start to take hold.
Ms. Chapman, Vance's remarks suggesting Mamdani was exaggerating anti-Muslim bias sparked outrage from progressive circles and sympathy from many Muslim and immigrant voters. Do you think this backlash has politically strengthened Mamdani, maybe by highlighting Islamophobia, or risked maybe alienating moderate voters who see the controversy as divisive?
J.D. Vance's comments have definitely highlighted the issue of Islamophobia and our growing Muslim and Arab population. Even though actually Mamdani is not Arab, I believe he's Indonesian, Indian, and the attacks on
Pakistani descent, I think, was it? It was an Indian, I think, Pakistani descent, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe that's correct, which actually just highlights America's role as a melting pot and welcoming people of all nationalities, races, religions to America, to be part of the American dream and to thrive as well as survive. And what's interesting about this is J.D. Vance's comments on, his aunt or experiencing perhaps bad looks after 9/11. This perhaps trivializes it. This was not greeted. This was viewed as a futile attack on Mamdani, perhaps irrelevant. And it does highlight, once again, we have the Trump administration, J.D. Vance, Donald Trump are working with our Arab and Muslim partners overseas to attain peace. So then to come home, J.D. Vance and Trump are very limited with the insults towards Mamdani's Islamic faith that they can get away with. They cannot insult his Islamic faith. At the same time, we are appealing to our Islamic partners for help in the Middle East. And what would have been more successful would have been highlighting Mamdani's wealth. His mother is an award-winning filmmaker. His father is a university professor. His family is well off. They did not come from poverty. And this would have been a more successful political attack in New York City. However, Cuomo cannot make this attack because he is wealthy. Sliwa is a sort of a common Sliwa is not wealthy, so he could have made that attack on Mamdani's wealth, but Republicans are pro-wealth, pro-hard work and amassing wealth. So there was very little that anyone could attack Mamdani on, not his faith, not his immigration status. They avoided attacking him on class or wealth grounds. And so indeed, Mamdani has enjoyed a very smooth political ascent. He has been immune from attacks from Republicans and Democrats.
And thank you. That was Ms. Ginger Chapman, the lawyer and political analyst, and Mr. Dan Rene, the political researcher. Thank you so much for joining me here today and for your insights. And this brings us to the end of today's episode for In Depth, and thank you for joining us. Do stay tuned, though, for more updates on Q News.